Welcome back to the channel. Today in the garage we're going to install these Schwalbe or Schwalbe Ice Spiker Pro tires. Ice Spiker Pro onto this and that Trek Marlin 6. They called it an Ice Spiker Pro because of the studded tires. These are actually, I believe, tungsten steel studs embedded in the tread, and they really work well on ice. So I'm going to take off these tires and put on these winter ones so we can continue riding in the winter. Let's get into it. Obviously the first thing I want to do is to get the wheels off the bike, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm only going to be using a few simple tools for the job, namely these tire spoons. I got them in a kit that came with rim protectors. I'm not going to use them on this job. I don't think they're required. So the first thing we want to do is let the air out of the tire. Let's go ahead and do that. I have one of these tools I picked up online. It's a really handy tire valve tool. It's also lets you take the valve core out of the valve if you need to. Of course, I don't need to here. I'm just using it to take the air out of the tire. I like to give it a little squeeze when it's running out, just to get any last air out of there. All right, now let's get the tire off the rim. You may or may not need the tool to do it. You might be able to just get by with giving it a good squeeze. I'll probably use my spoon here to pull that tire off the rim. It'll take a bit of doing it. It can be really stiff, especially in colder weather. There we go. Once you get one part of the lip of the rubber up, you can work at getting the secondary up. Like that. And then it's easier to pop out the whole section. Like that. Alright, now it should be pretty straightforward to get the rest, using your tire spoon or otherwise. Once you get it going, it'll sort of accelerate and get faster. That's really stuck in there. Really good bead. Once the one side is off, the rest of it should just come right off. Just carefully get the valve stem out. There we go, that tire's off. I'm going to pull out the inner tube. That's obviously why you want to keep that. Here's the new tire here. Well, it's not new, obviously. I've used it for a few seasons, but it's one we're putting on for the winter. Sometimes the tires are directional in nature, just like car tires. For instance, the tire I just took off was directional. I've taken a close look at this tire and I see no markings to indicate that it's directional, so it doesn't matter which way it goes on. What I like to do now is stick the tube in the side of the tire. And because there's still some air in there, it'll keep it shaped nicely and you won't have to worry about it flopping around. Find the hole for your valve stem. Put that through. One thing you'll want to do is ensure that the valve stem is perpendicular 90 degrees to the rim most of the time or all the time, because you don't want it coming in at an angle. It can cause wear in the valve stem and possibly a leak. And so now begins the process of getting the tire on the rim. I find it helps if we start with one side of the rim first. What you want to do is get it mostly over the top. I don't know if you can see that. I've got it mostly all the way around. And just start to work, as I said, one side at a time. So I'm doing obviously the side that's up to me. Just making sure that's in the rim. And now that it is, I'm going to stand it on its edge, turn it around. I'm going to start working this side into the rim. Now you might find as you're working on one side over here, it starts to come out on the other side. Take note of that, make sure that you don't waste too much time chasing that horse. If it's really cold out, the rubber might be really stiff and hard to do, in which case you might want to use tire spoon. If you're worried about metal tire spoons, then you might want to look into getting one of these plastic tire levers instead, and you can use it as a little extra leverage to get the tire in there. Again, don't pitch the inner tube. There we go. Success. Make sure my valve's still looking good, and it is. Now it's time to inflate the tire. I have a handy Ryobi power inflator, which I use for the cars as well as the bicycles and motorcycles. Decided that I'm going to inflate to 30 psi for the conditions we're going to be in. It seems to work for us well in the past. Your mileage might vary, and I'm sure you know how to inflate a tire. And start her up. As it's inflating, you want to take a pretty good eye on the bead all the way around and make sure that it seems to be setting properly. Last thing you want is for it to come explosively flying off at you. And to keep going till it's full. And that's it. We're all up to pressure. Put your valve cap back on and get the wheel back on your bike. That's it for today. Thanks for watching the video. We'll see you in the next one.